Worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King S.2 calling at you one more again. All right, family. True indeed, true indeed. Worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Thank you all for being right here with me. Yet again, you could have been anywhere, folks. You're here with me. I love you for it and I appreciate you. Thank you all tremendously. And welcome yet again to another episode of Building with Big King. True indeed, as we gather together, talk to each other in this wonderful forum. We share ideas, we bounce things off of each other, and we prepare ourselves moving forward as we continue to lay the foundation, as we continue to lay the bricks, right? To build the foundation, the new foundation for our new high vibrational frequency paradigm moving forward. One we like to say exudes peace, love, respect. True indeed. Thank you all, man. All right, so I'm gonna allow a couple of minutes for folks to come in, but like I did type into the intro there as you're coming in, this week's podcast is going to be focusing on solutions, right? We don't want to just talk about problems all the time. We definitely do because you got to know about it in order to address it, right? But I wanted to make sure that we, from time to time, take some time and specifically focus on solutions, right? We want to be bringing solutions to the table. And by at least suggesting some solutions, we can put things in the sort of in the atmosphere for us to kick around with one another and either come up with ways we can improve those ideas or some new ideas altogether. But we want new and fresh ideas, new ways at us approaching sometimes very old problems, right? So that we can find solutions and move forward again in our new high vibrational frequency paradigm, one that exudes peace, love, respect. True indeed. All right. So family, always, as is every week, feel free to announce yourself in the chat. Give me an opportunity to say hi. I love you, and I appreciate you stopping by. But never feel pressured. You can always just sit back and watch the podcast. That's fine, whatever you prefer. All right, Sister Carrie in the chat already early. Thank you, dear. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And yeah, man, we're going to really focus this podcast on solutions, right? Specifically, solutions to a couple of things today. Number one, and I've had a few different people approach me about this issue. I even had my mother talk to me about this issue, right? We all have come to agreement and understand that what we term as mainstream legacy media, right? Mainstream legacy media has proven itself time and time again. That is your main sources of news that come on at 10 a.m., at 11 a.m., at noon, at 5, at 6, at 10 p.m., at 11 p.m., right? And just keep on hitting you with a bunch of doom and gloom and things that are all agenda based, right? Agenda that serves the socially economic elite. When in fact, there are always new pieces of news that can be empowering, right, to you as you move and surge powerfully forward in your efforts to, in your life, establish a paradigm of peace, love, respect. And we need to always be keeping that in mind, folks, that this is a paradigm shift that we want to be enacting not only as a collective, but also in our own lives personally, right? In fact, it probably is more prudent for us to think of it in those terms, right? Beginning a new paradigm in our lives and then extending that out into the collective, right? But again, specifically in dealing with sources, right? Or sources of information, and finding free thinking sources of information is certainly very important and powerful and empowering to you. As again, we've already identified that mainstream legacy media and sources of information. We got Fam Kamikaze coming in the building one more again. To Kamikaze and Sister Carrie, I'm gonna send both of y'all a powerful salute. And everybody else coming in is gonna get one. I appreciate y'all being with me today. Thank you. I appreciate you tremendously. All right, so we're talking about these solutions of dealing with the problem of mainstream legacy media, right? It is a big issue and a big problem, especially when you take into account that our elders, right? Those who are quite honestly, actually, my generation, even, but the generations that have preceded me are certainly very much entrenched and have been indoctrinated in the practice of looking to the quote unquote mainstream news, the mainstream legacy media that comes on as your news, right? Um, and I just listed those times of the day. They get you at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., right? At noon. And they come back and hit you again at 5, and then at 6, and then again at 10 and 11 p.m., right? And there's even some other news programs that come on at different times in between. So you get a thorough, right? A very thorough uh, 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 drenching saturation, right, into your mind and your psyche of the agenda that is perpetuated by these news sources or sources of or these mainstream legacy media sources and all of the sources of information that serve and essentially puppet the agenda and what is rolled out by the socially economic elite. Just to illustrate a little bit for you all what I'm talking about, and not that I'm just being paranoid and um, espousing something that is not the case, folks. If you check, you will find that um, well over 80%, well over 80% of the news stations, I'm talking about individual news stations, right? Um, just to give a quick example, and I'm only pointing this out or naming this particular channel to give an example of a local news channel. No other reason. Um, Channel 2 here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is KDKA, right? And they certainly have their news programs that they bring to you throughout those times of the day that I mentioned. That's what I mean. Those local and even the bigger, of course, news outlets are all owned by 6 corporations. And interestingly enough, if you do a little deeper research, a real deep dive, you find affiliations between those 6. So you might as well say one. And they are very efficient and streamlined in putting out their agenda in that way, right? In fact, speaking of those news sources or yeah, man, it's true, look into it. Your mainstream legacy media is all owned essentially by the same entities, right, by the same group. and serve the very same cabal, right? That we're trying to, when I say cabal, I'm talking about the organization of the socially economic elite globalists, many of which, in fact, most of which belonging to the depopulationist movement, right? Um, yeah, man. And we see that these mainstream legacy media or sort of puppeted sources of information, right? Particularly news. Or else Sister Heather in the building. Word life. All right, Sister Heather, thank you for being with us. One of my dear friends down there in West V. How are you? Yeah, man. But that is actually the case, that they're all owned by the six corporations who, if you deep dive enough, you will see affiliation between them. So I tend to say they're all essentially serving one group, right? Um, but yeah, you see that if you were to take, now I don't have the ability to do so right now, and but if you were, let's say at 6 o'clock, right in the evening, able to break your screen down into segmented smaller screens, and in each screen, if you were able to put, let's say, KDKA here in Pittsburgh or whatever other news channel. I don't want them coming down on me. I'm only identifying you as an example of a local news station. All right. So anyway, if you put them or any other local news channel and you do so for cities, that means pull up the news channel or one of the local news channels for just about any city in the entire United States, right? And if you filled up your TV screen with all of these different news channels at 6 o'clock, when pretty much evening news airs in just about every city, right? Certainly at least every major city, right around 6 o'clock. If you were to do that in that segmented screen, you would see the very same or almost identical news feeds in each of them. And if you listen and follow to the wording and the scripting, right? Or to the wording and the way that each of the stories is presented to you, right? Or even if you deep dive a little bit further and look into the type of story that's being presented to you, you will see a uniformity amongst all of them. It is almost as though they're all essentially divvied out a little script, right? And they must put together their program based on that script. In fact, I don't doubt that that's a likelihood that they are given a specific script, right? Because how else do they come up with? I've seen this happen before, is why I'm saying you can do it. I've seen simultaneous feeds of news channels from different cities all across the US, and they're basically all saying the same thing. Why is that, folks? That is because of what I just told you earlier. They're all owned by the same group. See, you have to understand this is exactly how the mechanisms of the socially economic elites, the mechanisms of the socially economic elites show up in our lives on an everyday basis. Right? I told you several times that they affect every single institution that touches our everyday lives, from education, agriculture, right? Religion, etc. Finance, they're always affecting our lives. And one of the main tools of doing so is to continuously push out their agenda. Right? And what's their agenda? Their agenda is to control what you are thinking on a daily basis. Well, how could they possibly do that? By controlling the information that is fed to you on a daily basis. Now, they may not control specifically how you individually form your thoughts, but if they're feeding you the information that you're thinking about, put two and two together, folks. In that way, they are indeed controlling what you think, how you think, because they're giving you what it is that you're going to think about. Now, think about it, especially as I told you about those older generations. What do they naturally and almost automatically do? After they watch the news, that's the next thing on their mind, and that they're talking about to one another and usually disseminating down to you, right? What they just digested from what's on the news. And then they regurgitate it to everyone else, right? It's just the way that they have been indoctrinated to behave and to receive their information, right? I mean, quite honestly, well, no, I got to be honest. I've always, since I was young, I mean, very young, have had some form of pushback against that. Who knows? Maybe that's one of the innate ways that the Creator has made me predisposed to waking up out of the Maya, which is the illusion that is created by the socially economic elite. Many of us refer to it as like the Matrix, right? That they shroud over our eyes. And that's exactly what happens. We see on all of these news channels, Lees, what's up, cuz? All right, thank you. We see on all of these news channels where information is puppeted out to us and giving us the agenda that they want us to follow. There was plenty of stuff, folks, that was happening in the world of great importance, both on a humanitarian level and importance on how it affects all of our lives collectively and individually. There was a lot available that could have been reported to you in the news when they were focusing so much time and effort. And I always just use this as an example because I think it's a good example of a distraction. When they were focusing so much time and effort on the slap, right? You know, that's all I heard about for weeks in the bar. I'm talking about when Will Smith slapped the good brother. Excuse me for forgetting his name, but y'all know what I'm talking about, right? We for weeks conversated. Did you see Will Smith slap so and so, and then this and that? Chris Rock. And if you don't believe or think that that was a major distraction effort, then you're just not able to see it at the moment. No judgment, but hopefully you will soon. Go back and look at, from free thinking news sources, some of the things that were going on in the world at the time. The effort was to distract you. And I was just using that as an example because this happens all the time. It's happening currently, right? There's yet again being prepared another congressional hearing on the UFO UAP subject. Folks, this is not a subject that's going to go away because there's too much involved with it. It is too major. And quite frankly, you don't, for the best and well-being of yourselves, your family, and all of us going forward in the future, you don't want it to go away. Because we can't go back to an age of blind secrecy where individuals, groups like those within the military-industrial complex, right, and other ways where we see, or what's the right word I want to use? Vestiges of power, where we see the socially economic elite, right, abusing their power and their ability to usurp the American people's money, right? Because we think about that, we talk about how much money and power they have, But I think we often have a disconnect that most of it is money that's coming from us. We don't think about that readily. We think, oh, there's families, these 6 families, and there's folks in this world who are billionaires and multi-billionaires, and Bill Gates, I believe it was just announced, is well over 107 or 108 billion dollars. Again, having money is not a crime, folks, and it's not a bad thing at all. It's a good thing if you do good things with it, right? But we do tend to see, when you get past the level of, let's say, you know, 10 to $100 billion, we start to see corruption creeping in very heavily, right? We start to see the things that people have to adhere to and to become a part of, in most cases, not all, in most cases, to become a part of those upper echelon socially economic elite, that they have to adhere to a mind state that is in conformity with the agenda of the socially economic elite as we know them, as this globalist cabal, right? But anyway, these are the folks that are controlling these sources of media and information, right? So we can't be blind to that. We need to understand that. And we need to be able to, willing to, right? And efficient and effective in our efforts to gain free thinking information. So I want to talk a little bit about how we can do that. I'm only going to give off a few examples, but if you follow the method, so to speak, of how I found them, or how I utilize them, then you can certainly find these, and others will tend to spring up, right? So one example of a fairly free thinking news source that I tend to take a look at is, there is an organization called Open the Books, right? And they send me emails almost daily. And in these emails, one of the things that they really do is they focus on tracing the dollar, right? Which I've always said is a very effective method. Follow the money and those who are manipulating it, and what their intent and intentions are and their agenda is. And you often get a real powerful stage of insight in order for you to learn from. So, Open the Books, they have done some, they helped me to some really interesting facts about, let's just say, for example, the previous administration, and how I understood so readily and easily in financial terms how exactly and how deeply the Biden-Harris administration had funded and empowered Israel during and leading up to and during this most recent military campaign that they've been lodging against the Gaza Strip there, and Palestine in general, but certainly focusing on the Gaza Strip. One of the things that even Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, had alluded to was that, and these were his words, we could not have pulled these campaigns off without the funding and the aid in arms that we received from the United States. Wow. So think about that, folks. Oh, brother Sean in the building, word life. Thank you for being with me, family. Alicia, salute for you as well. Everybody, big salute for being with me. Thank you so much. But yeah, Netanyahu spoke specifically about how he could not have done what he's been doing without the direct aid of the United States, right? And it's not just like there's been a whole bunch of countries coming to the aid and financing this. No, it's been primarily the United States. Okay. So primarily your money has gone toward this effort to support the efforts of Netanyahu, his administration, and the what I refer to as the horrible uh, uh, um, slaying, the just downright genocide, which is not only my words, right? There have been entire other countries who've made public statements denouncing what's happening in the Gaza Strip and calling it a genocide. But anyway, um, Netanyahu has spoken profoundly and profusely, right, about how they would not have been able to do what they did without the aid of the United States. And again, that aid is your money. So what have they been doing that they've been sending your money to fund and support? Folks, they have killed, and I say they have killed because their military campaigns, right, have directly taken the lives of folks. I believe it's well over, if I'm not mistaken, you could check the numbers for yourselves, but I believe it's well over 60,000 people. And of that 60,000, if I'm not mistaken, over 15, I believe closer to 20,000 children. Stop and hold the presses right there. I've said numerous times that there is never anything right with terrorism. So I'm never a supporter of terrorism or lashing back in that way, because you're still taking lives and you're doing so in an ugly, evil, deplorable way. It's not the solution. However, so many of us, particularly here in the US, right, is we are so handicapped and handcuffed, right, behind the label of anti-Semitism, which I am not an anti-Semite. I'm not an anti-anyone. I'm a love everyone. So you can't put that label on me. And certainly have plenty of Jewish friends, right? I have friends in every walk of life. Why wouldn't I? Right? But I'm not afraid of that label because I'm not that. And I'm going to speak the truth, man. There is no way in the world that it is just your proper and due, your correct, the appropriate and reasonable response to terrorism that you would go and kill almost 20,000 children. What? That's evil. Period. You can't put another, and if somebody wants to stick up for murdering children, then I guess you and I got a debate. I'm not going to, actually, I'm not going to debate that. I don't do debates anymore. And there's just two sides of the fence, right? And perhaps it's just that I proclaim my side and you proclaim yours. But I don't support anyone who kills children. And I hope none of you do. I don't think you do, right? But that is what has been, that's the reality of what they've been doing with your money. And it is only because of sources like Open the Books. Remember, I said that Open the Books. You can look them up and then easily sign up for them to send you daily alerts as well. Open the Books. But they've tracked how and showed how former President Biden being slick so that he didn't have to go through always getting approval from Congress to send these arms or monetary aid to Israel, because he was doing so. I mean, folks, we're not talking about a little bit of money, okay? We're talking about billions upon billions of dollars, okay? That's the reality of it. And we're not talking about a couple machine guns. We're talking about heavy armament aid, from small arms to missiles and whatever other larger armaments they've sent there. Done the typical and traditional and actually the most above board and transparent way, he would have gotten approval from Congress on all of that. But then he began to practice, or to utilize, at least, I won't say he started the practice, because I'm sure there have been other presidents who've been sneaky in this way, but he utilized the practice of micro shipments. He would send the armament shipments and even the dispersals of money under a certain threshold to evade the legal requisite of getting approval from Congress. I mean, this just goes to show you how vested in Israel's efforts they were. And what, again, were those efforts? They have slaughtered the Palestinians in ridiculous numbers, right? But most alarming is the slaughter of thousands and thousands of children. Folks, I even saw, now I'm just relaying this, I'm not saying that this is the case, but I'm relaying what I saw at one point. It was some form of it wasn't an open congressional hearing, like as is going on with the UFO UAP subject, and of course a myriad of other things. But it was like some committee or something, some committee hearing that was relevant to what's going on over in the Middle East, and specifically with Palestine and Israel. And there was a woman who was a servicewoman. I forget what branch of the military she was in, but she was in uniform, and she stood up in protest of what the United States is supporting by way of Israel's efforts in the Gaza Strip. And she screamed at the panel saying, "This must stop. I am acutely aware of exactly what they're doing over there." She said, this is what someone else said, don't put it on me, I'm just relaying it, but I happen to have a sneaking suspicion that it may be quite accurate. And it's horrible, folks. It is horrifying. I will prepare you. It is horrifying what I'm about to say. But this servicewoman, right, belonging to some branch of the military, stood up and screamed at them, "This has got to stop right now. It is evil what they're doing." She said they are over there burning children alive. That's deep. I needed to pause. That's deep. That's horrible. That's evil. But then again, what is it other than that? When you slaughter and slay, when you kill, murder and maim, when you take the lives of innocent children to the tune of somewhere between 15 and 20,000 lives. Children. All of those lives are innocent lives. Most of the people that they're killing, in my estimation, they are, right? There's debate about that. They'll say, "Oh, there was insurgents and there were, militants hiding." Folks, first of all, unless they see these people committing these acts, right, and have a proper requisite of proof, you don't know exactly who you're even bombing. You don't know for sure that you're bombing those responsible for any of these terrorist acts. I mean, there's intelligence involved, and maybe it may provide some degree of accuracy. But we've already seen on far too many occasions innocents being bombed. Oh, I got my friend Deanne. Thank you, dear heart. Deanne from Connecting the Dots with Deanne, another dear friend. Thank you for being in. Salute to you and everybody in with us today. Thank you. Heather, if I didn't give you a salute, everybody gets one. You need it. You deserve it. Thank you. But anyway, that is absolutely ridiculous, right? That we are seeing and have seen that kind of strategic taking of lives against people who, in my estimation, in many instances, have proven to be innocent. And if you don't believe my or take my word for it, like you never should, always check it out for yourselves. Look into how there were innocent refugees who were fleeing the Gaza Strip because there was bombing taking place. They're just running for their lives, essentially. And they got to a place that was supposed to be a safe haven for them to be able to rest a moment, gather themselves and their families, right? And try and find some sanctity of peace and safety. And guess what? The Israelis bombed that too. Huh? Check into it. They bombed that too. Those innocent refugees, they came right in, and you're a target as well. See, they don't talk about the fact that when they claim that they find these insurgents or militants or whatever, or those who are associated with terrorist acts, that they're often embedded in places where there's plenty of folks around who are completely innocent and have absolutely nothing to do with it. So to get around it, they feel in their minds morally, all they have to do is say, oh, the insurgents were hiding themselves behind human shields. No, you just were discriminate. You just went in and just picked your target and didn't care who was around. You didn't care if you have to kill 50 Palestinians who are completely innocent to get one who may have had something to do with the act that you are responding to. That is complete and utter disregard for life. Go back further. Look into the Obama administration. And yes, folks, I was one of the individuals who helped Obama get elected. I specifically worked on his campaign with a very powerful domestic organization, right, that did campaigning for him all over the U.S. And I did campaigning all over Western Pennsylvania, literally. So I bear some responsibility. I didn't know. I was hopeful. I was bamboozled just like everyone else. But indeed, President Obama, if you look back, followed the same agenda. In fact, you may not know this, but in many countries, he's known by a very dastardly nickname, Obama the Bomber. Why? Because during his administration, drone strikes was the way of it. And they killed all kind of innocent people. Folks, I know we like President Obama. I just told you I helped the man get in office, right? I know we like President Obama, but we got to be willing to face facts when facts are what they are. And the facts are that his administration was responsible for the taking of quite a few innocent lives, right? To give an example of that, there is the instance when one of his drone strikes that he ordered slaughtered an entire wedding party. These folks were literally having a wedding, one of the greatest celebrations in life. And out of nowhere, a drone comes, drops a bomb, kills the entire wedding party, along with quite a few others. But yeah, so we need to not, sometimes we have a habit of looking at these things as just like numbers, right? You know, or just vague stories that pass in front of our eyes, not realizing or not taking at least into deep enough consideration that these are human beings just like me and you. Imagine if you were out celebrating your wedding and here comes a bomb out the sky. It kills all of you, everyone in the wedding party and a whole bunch of other people. Let's say that came just for instance, right? A hypothetical situation. Let's say that came from Canada, because they felt that there was someone in the U.S. who did some crime up in Canada, right? Some some dastardly deed. Maybe there was a terrorist act and they feel it was someone in the US who was responsible for it. So what if they did that? Essentially the same thing as what the Obama administration ordered. So why should we expect those folks to feel any differently than you would feel if you were in that situation? Human life is human life. People are people. Everyone deserves to live. We do not deserve the decision of some foreign leader that, oh, we're going to take this action and all of a sudden you're dead. And that's just the way of it. No, this is not right. And keep in mind, folks, all of this is being done in your name as Americans. And we wonder why there is so much dissent and negativity in terms of around the world toward American people. Because they're doing it all in our name. As far as the rest of the world knows, we're all with it. And then when you have some of us who do actually speak up in favor of such dastardly acts, we see that, like examples of, I forget who this young lady was, but some entertainer actually decided to sign, to take like a Sharpie or something and autograph, should I say, one of the bombs that was used over there in the Gaza Strip. And guess what she put under it as a little quote? End them all. With exclamation points after that. And then signed her name on it. This is the result of indoctrination. You understand that? It is only a mind that has been sickly indoctrinated that can come to even a conclusion that they're okay with that. And then to endorse it in a braggadocious manner like that, very sick, very mentally sick, right? But it's the result of indoctrination. Because in her mind, she literally believes those people don't deserve to live. Think about that. All right, I got off on a bit of a tangent. Brother Sean, I see you got some comments. Sister Carrie got some comments. I'm going to jump into the chat in a moment. I do want to finish up a little bit here. I got distracted because, and it's for good reason, folks, we're talking about massive loss of life. And a lot of people over here in the U.S. don't even realize the actual context of it, right? They're doing this with our money and in our name. Think about that. All right. So I mentioned Open the Books. Please look into them. Great information that you get on almost a daily basis from them. Also, another organization that I've been getting some great information from almost on a daily basis, 1440 Daily Digest. Those folks send me news feeds sometimes 2-3 times a day, right, in the form of an email. And isn't that a lot better than being inundated with something popping up in front of your face? I have control of it completely. I can open the email up or not. They give a little headline you kind of see to decide if you even want to open it up, right? I mean, I like that format personally. Also, I want to throw out there that there are folks who use their platforms to at least partially provide an increase in awareness and somewhat give you some news, like a Russell Brand, for an example, right? Russell Brand, no matter what they are saying over there about him in the UK, and of course, I don't support anybody who did the things that he's being accused of. I don't support those things, I'll say, right? Certainly not. But I do recognize that more and more, it's quite funny that more and more when people start to speak up against the agenda of the socially economic elite, that it's only a matter of time before they got some sort of an accusation levied against them. Folks, I'm just not a fool. I'm sorry. I can't ignore 2 + 2. 2 + 2, I'm going to put it together all the time, and I'm going to see that for, right? You speak up against the system, all of a sudden you get a bunch of charges levied against you and a bunch of accusers. Something is going on with that. I'll leave it alone from there. But anyway, Russell Wilson, or excuse me, Russell Brand. Let's make the correction. Russell Brand has got a channel on the platform, not only on YouTube, but on rumble.com, which I appear as well. And he gives some very, very detailed and poignant information, and by all estimations, and at least by my accounting, does an excellent job of journalism, right? So certainly you can look to him for some free thinking information. Look into it for yourselves to check the veracity of that. Also, believe it or not, there's some sources of news and information that you might not even expect or look to, right? But if you pay attention and you're good at discernment and weeding through things, you may find or be able to glean some high vibe information from, like, for example, Eddie Griffin, right? Now, the NNN, I'm not going to say what those N's stand for, News Network, right? You can do the rest. And it is based on comedy, okay? And it's fiction in that way, but in many instances, he touches on some very serious and appropriately concerning issues and news happenings. So the point is, excuse me, folks, to be willing to think outside of the box, right? To be willing to not rely on what you've been indoctrinated into as utilizing or relying upon as a news source, but to really and truly seek out and utilize free thinking sources of information. So again, you had to open the books. You have the 1440 digest. You can look at Russell Brand. There's plenty of sources out there. If you are earnestly going into it with a mindset that wants to find something outside of the box of what mainstream legacy media offers you. All right, there's that. I said the show is about solutions. There's one more that I don't want to be remiss in addressing. And that's because a lot of folks have come up to me and talked to me about this as well. And I've just in general seen a lot of concern around this issue, which is difficulty, right, in manifesting what you focus on, right? It's when you get very specific. In particular, folks having a lot of difficulty that is distressing to them, right? Because you want to manifest the kind of life you want to live in. Understandable. I again will point you back to my YouTube channel and the videos I have therein, because I have several videos where I go in depth about manifesting. But one of the difficulties that I mentioned is the manifestation lag. The manifestation lag, right? There is a time lag when often, particularly when you're sort of a fledgling in actively manifesting your life. There is a lag of time in between what we consider an appropriate time for our manifestation to come to fruition and what the universe and the energies involved in said processing may present as a time frame for your manifestation to come in. Human beings don't have patience, folks. We really don't. We really don't, y'all. We don't. I understand it. I'm often impatient myself in many of these ways, right? So I do understand that, but often we're just looking for things to happen in too quick of a turnaround, right? That's one thing. The other thing is that we need to always recognize that it is about the vision of what you want to manifest that you've got to hold. Now, this can often prove to be the most difficult aspect, or one of the most difficult aspects, because I'm going to mention another in a minute. But it's often very difficult amidst the ebbs and flows of daily life, right? We got bills to pay, families to raise, we got problems, issues, et cetera, right? Um, and these things distract us and weigh heavily on our mindset, can sway our mindset when we're attempting to go throughout our day, perhaps holding a certain vision of where we want to see our lives moving into. It's difficult for us to not allow those things to distract us and to sway us from that vision, right? It is very difficult just during the course of daily life to hold that vision. All right. And then the last thing I'm going to mention is gratitude. Folks, when we want to manifest, the very most important aspect of manifesting, besides a clear vision and holding it, is gratitude. We have to actually become grateful before we even receive it. And that's tough. That's tough for a lot of us because remember, for most of us, seeing is believing. If you telling me I'm getting it, but I ain't got it yet and might not still ever get it, I feel like I ain't going to get it. And it didn't work and I ain't manifest nothing. But in reality, that's not how it works, folks. Your gratitude is expressive of a certain vibrational frequency resonance. Okay? It is a high vibrational frequency resonance. When your soul, better put, when your biosphere, which is the electromagnetic field that I talked to all of you about, that extends forward from your body at least about 24 feet on average, but can be much greater for some. When your biosphere is vibrating in a frequency that is of gratitude, particularly when you're holding that vision that you want to manifest, then you are aligning yourself and sending a direct signal, an electromagnetic signal to the quantum field. All right? That is all around us, the energetic field that is all around us, intertwining with, engaging with, and dictating, or rather taking our dictation and manifesting or reverberating back to us our 3D, 4D corporeal physical reality. All right. When you hold that vibration of gratitude, you are sending a direct signal to the quantum field that you are in a resonance of receiving. Okay? That you are someone who abundance happens for. And I got Aaron Lyons gives you some magnificent. We don't never hate on this channel. If somebody else got something good for you, I'm gonna speak it to you. Aaron Lyons, capital ERIN, Lyons, her last name LYONS. Check that sister out. She is sharp, and gives some very great messages, instructions, and tools on manifesting, and it's pretty much reverberating the same thing I'm saying, and they said it in her own way very eloquently. But she talks about how when you have that gratitude, you are indeed in a vibrational frequency, and I say it's a frequency resonance, right? That you resonate in a frequency that communicates to the universe, to the quantum field, that you are in a vibrational frequency that can receive the abundance that you hold in your vision. All right. Very important. Very important. Gratitude is a must. If you are complaining, if you are in an ingrateful mentality, what are you really sending to the quantum field, to the universe? You're sending to the quantum field that things are bad, that you expect bad. That's all you ever got was bad, and that's probably ever you're going to get is bad. That's the message you're sending to the quantum field, to the universe, and the universe is just essentially saying, "Okay, we believe you. Here goes some more." But when you think and resonate in abundance, then that electromagnetic signal is reverberated back to you. And the universe is essentially saying, "Oh, you're someone who lives abundantly. Well, here's some more abundance for you." And that's the way our creator designed it for our benefit, in our favor. Right? True indeed. Okay. Now that I got that out of the way, and it took me over 55 minutes to do it, I apologize, y'all. Let's jump into the chat. But that was some important stuff I had to get out to you. So Sister Carrie says, "I'm truly glad we left Israel before the fighting started heavily. My family still have friends over there." Yes, indeed. And I share and express concern for anyone's safety in that area, whether you're a visitor or someone who lives in that area, because when the turmoil and the fighting and the death and destruction, the murdering, the mayhem, all that is happening over there occurs, there ain't a whole lot of taking time to tally up who's who, right? Bombs get to dropping, they just get to going off, right? Missiles are launched, they do a death toll later, and then they'll let you know if there's someone, unfortunately, who maybe was visiting, who was from America or from wherever, right? But the bottom line is, it is a very, very difficult environment to live in, and I think to a degree most of us really can't fathom. We just take for granted that we can go to sleep in peace and wake up in peace every day. That's the reality of it. But thank you, Sister Carrie, for bringing that up. Brother Sean says the Obama administration and the Biden administration was one and the same in terms of agenda and adhering to the agenda of the socially economic elite, and launching out the launching of certain milestones, so to speak, within the elitist agenda, as it took the shape of things like UN Agenda 2023, and I think there was a UN Agenda 2030 that's still out there. And man, UN Agenda 2020 when it was in effect, and a lot of other agendas that most of us don't even have any awareness of, or is brought to our light. The fact is one and the same, that both of those administrations adhered heavily to, pretty much letter for letter, to that dark, dastardly agenda that the socially economic elite have been rolling out in the past 10 to 15 years. Yes, I will say that both those administrations were heavily entrenched in that. You can look at transgenderism, for example, perfect example. Something, and folks, this is not a hate statement. I'm not trying to say that I hate folks out there who may be transgender, or anybody in the LGBTQ community. I hope I said it correctly. I may not have, it was not purposeful, but I'm not targeting anyone, because again, I'm not anti anyone. However, I am pro man, woman, child, right? And the fact that, like, I'm not one who adheres to the mentality that the creator made a mistake in making this person. First of all, the creator doesn't make mistakes in my estimation. What is your belief? Right? And certainly that nature and the creator have not made a mistake in making someone a boy or girl, male or female, I do speak. I recommend, again, you go back to my channel and look at some of my videos. Folks, I've got now close to 700 videos that you can take a look at, right? So please know that there is information there that you can utilize to approach subjects like this. And I talk about homosexuality and how there in this society are two different forms, right? There's natural, quote unquote, homosexuality, which we should understand and expect as a natural segment of our population. And there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, it's a very natural process. And if you go to the video that I made on that, you'll understand exactly what I meant when I get into the spirituality of it. But there's the other kind, which is brought about artificially, right? By things being put in our water supply and food supply, like the chemical tetrazine. Do some research on that and its powerful impact on affecting hormones, right? How you can use it, tetrazine, to actually flip. They've done this in labs to flip the sexuality of frogs from male to female and female to male. Pardon me, just one moment, folks. Excuse me, I had to make sure we didn't run out of power. All right. But yeah, that chemical being added into the food and water supply, the heavy indoctrination that we see in society, right, bringing that about. There is a natural percentage of the population that will be homosexual. And again, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? But when it is unnatural and it is brought about either through indoctrination or forms of social engineering, or if it is brought about actually by the tainting of our food supply and water supply with chemicals that bring about hormonal imbalances and shifting. And when I say hormonal imbalances, I mean increase of testosterone in women and increase of estrogen in men. That's what I'm talking about. That's very real, right? That, of course, is going to throw off the proportions in society of the experience of homosexuality, right? And if it's done via an agenda or to support an agenda, I'm not for it. And if it's done in a manner that that distorts the natural occurrence of something, then I think we should all take note to it and investigate any agenda surrounding it. So transgenderism falls into that category, especially when you take a look at California, for example, and how they have taken power away from, and this is via uh, um, order, I forget what you call it, but law, we'll just say law, that was written in the form of an order from the governor of California, right? Where power is taken away from the parents, right? And given to the school district and the school systems. When I say power, I mean power over the children's sexuality. That's right, folks. Not only once your child arrives at public school in California, will they be heavily indoctrinated in themes that support and indoctrinate your children along the lines of transgenderism, but via the law, as parents, you're not notified of any of that. When it begins to take hold of your child, and if they exhibit that in school or on during school hours or any school function whatsoever, that it is noticed by guidance counselor, teachers, or anyone. There's no discussion with the parents. And furthermore, once it happens, or if it happens that your child decides to take their own stance. Now, mind you, this is after the indoctrination. This is after all that they've ran into in school, right? And we're talking about a young, impressionable mind in a setting that they're being fed these things from individuals who are supposed to be looking out for their best interest. Okay. Um, when that occurs, that the child takes on, let's say, a stance or position that is different from the parents, the school empowers the child and tells the parent, essentially, you have nothing to do with this. If your child wants to come to school and receive further um, indoctrination on the subject that may be contrary to you and your family's beliefs, doesn't matter. If your child comes to school and um, becomes more curious, enthralled, or indoctrinated and what is being presented to them in the school system or by the school system, you have no say so in that. They even go as far as to, if your child begins to request or desire to have made a part of their health and wellness in their scholastic environment, that they take hormone either hormone blocking or hormone altering substances. Are you hearing me? If your child decides, your male child decides he wants to grow breasts, the school will help them gain access to those medications. Deep, right? If your child is a girl who, because of what she, has experienced, learned, and essentially become indoctrinated by in her scholastic environment, comes to the decision that she wants to grow a beard, right? Then the school will help her with the hormone pills for that. Now, everyone has an opportunity, and I respect everyone's position on this subject. Not everyone will see it the way I do. I'm just making sure you're informed about it. Did you know there was an entire state that did all that? Did you know in California, they even go as so far as to, if the child wants to have a sex change surgery, not to mention the fact that guidance counselors often promote this in the minds of the children, okay, along with a slew of other adults and peers in that environment who do so. But if your child gets to the point where they are just too uncomfortable in their body and they seek out a sex change, the school district, again, does not have to inform the parents. The only thing they would inform the parents of is their lack of influence and input and power in the situation. They will empower the child up to and including assistance in getting the surgery, regardless of how the parents feel about it. Just so that we're aware of that, right? So I'm glad Sister Carrie jumped in with that, and I had to acknowledge it. And also, Brother Sean, what you said about the Obama and Biden administration, because if you notice, both of them championed that very same agenda, right? Kamala Harris, if elected, would have taken it to a whole nother level. She was proposing to have taxpayers pay for the sex change of any inmate in the entire United States who would like to have a sex change operation. That gets done, and according to her vision, what it was, on taxpayer dime. And I'm not even going to talk about what the environment is. I happen to know personally, but I'm not even going to talk about what the environment is in the penitentiaries and the penal system, right? And how that agenda of indoctrination is enforced. I remember how yes, folks, it's been over 30 years for me since I was in the penitentiary, but that is a reality of my past. But I remember how they would jump on. I said we're going to talk about it, but a little bit. I remember how the guards would just about jump down your throat in the visiting room if you happen to put your arm around your girlfriend or get a nice warm hug or maybe a little kiss on the cheek, or God, excuse me, pardon me, forbid that you actually kiss your woman right on the mouth. We ain't talking about I'll beat you down. But if you're in the yard openly committing some form of homosexual act, they act like they don't see nothing. They'll literally turn their heads, look right at you, and then turn and look away. I've seen both. Now, you tell me what agenda is being played out there. See, folks, we don't realize that all of these agendas that start at the top, right? They start at the top, trickle down to all of us and affect our everyday lives. And yeah, cuz that is crazy. Thank you, Lise, for chiming in. But that's the reality of it. And unless we folk, and there's others out there when I started to mention out, I mean, for me personally, I now like this version of Candace Owens. Not that I disliked her before, but she was very politically guided, right? Where now she's a lot more free thinking in her stances and what she espouses. But Candace Owens has been incredibly eloquent in speaking about a lot of this. I don't agree with everything she says, but a lot. She is very eloquent in delivering, and she's good at bringing to the forefront things that get swept under the rug, right? Because we're given so many distractions, things that should be newsworthy that most of us don't find out about. But she's another potential source that you might want to look into. I would say Joe Rogan, but Joe Rogan doesn't necessarily do any sort of journalistic endeavors, or doesn't really bring you news as much as he just talks about certain topics. So forget that. But anyway, the point is, if you go out there, folks, and you put in the effort to find some free thinking sources of information, you can find them. They are there for you, right? And they'll make you aware of things like this, right? It wasn't, I guarantee you, it wasn't on the Channel 11 news that I found out about Gavin's agenda over there, and Governor Gavin over there in California, right? Oh, and guess who he was sort of best friends with, or who he was a crony for? Kamala Harris. So, I mean, it just goes to show you how that agenda was rolled out. And anyway, I myself, folks, as I've spoken about many times, generally don't trust any politician. I don't, especially anyone who is pigeonholed in the Democrat or Republican camps, right? In my estimation and in my opinion, we really need to expressly, as quickly as possible, do away with the two-party system, right? It does not benefit us. There is no reason it has to be. We will be much better served with a completely open field of politicians who were directly responsible to, and pardon me, folks, directly responsible to, and who answer to, essentially, directly, the people, their constituents. And that is just often not the case with most politicians. All right. Boy, we've talked about some powerful things that we all need to, and I would assume are all, because we're here, willing to bring into our field of thought, right? And with that, we can process and position it to position ourselves into action, right? And I say that it always calls for folks mature, compassionate action. Much of the agenda which has been rolled out to us in the world is literally engineered to destroy compassion, right? Or to make your compassion selective, right? And that's not true love, folks. That's not true unconditional love. True unconditional love is just that, the understanding that every human being, actually every creation of our Creator, deserves some level of respect and love. True unconditional love. All right, I'm not talking about romantic love, okay? Um, Unconditional humanitarian love, right? All right, man. This has been a powerful episode indeed. I am so grateful to all of you, and once again, you steered me in the right directions. Right, I know I espoused a lot, but a lot of it was in response directly to what I saw you all put there, and you once again pointed me in some powerful directions. So we had some powerful things to talk about today. Once again, man, I love this forum so much that we have created for one another, and how we get together and truly communicate with each other about the reality of the problems that we face and the veracity of different solutions that we can present to one another as we make our way forward in laying down the foundation, right, of this new high vibrational frequency paradigm that we're building together, right? This new high vibrational frequency paradigm that exhibits peace, love, respect. All right. Brother Sean comes back in. Sean Johnson says, we need to go back to the Republic way of government. We the people, for the people, by the people. Yeah, folks. That ties right into, thank you, Brother Sean. That's a very poignant and powerful point. That ties right into what I had spoke about previously in terms of why they really wanted to come down and why it was so imperative for the CIA in particular, and in the United States in general, to come down, collapse, sabotage, and destroy the Black Panther Party, because their true theme was power to the people. If you watch the movie, the young man gave a really good little couple of minutes where he explained it in a really clear, understandable, and powerful fashion. He said, Black power to Black people, white power to white people, red power to red people, yellow people to yellow, right? See, they try to take me off air behind that, y'all. You see, they don't like that concept, right? Yellow power to yellow people, et cetera, et cetera. All power to all the people. Governments are supposed to be your representatives and employees. So many of us have been indoctrinated into visualizing and thinking of the government as our boss. How many of us just have it intrinsically ingrained in our psyche that the government is the boss? They are not, folks. They are not. You are. They don't have the power. You have the power, as it should be. And the more we awaken to that, the more we bring it to fruition. Literally, just the act of us awakening to that increases power to the people. And if you don't believe me, once again, I offer up the evidence. Why, amidst all of the things that we have going on in the world, all these military conflicts, all these natural disasters claiming so many lives and affecting and imperiling the lives of so many of which, particularly here in the US, not getting proper support from the government, in my opinion. But anyway, all of this going on in the world, right? All of this upheaval and unrest in the world. And for some strange reason, the most powerful and the largest governments in the world are focusing on unprecedented laws where they control what you have access to learn. Think about that. Why so much focus on censorship? They are deathly afraid of what you learn. They are shaking in their boots about what you have access to. They are flipping out, panicking, and just about ready to jump off the roofs, folks, in desperation about the information that you now have access to in the information age. Think about that. If they weren't, they wouldn't be focusing on unprecedented laws around censorship right now. They wouldn't be every time they turn around talking to you about misinformation. What they're really trying to get you to do is be blind drones who only listen to and only take into consideration the information provided to them by the state or those interests that they control. Think about that. And if what I'm saying weren't true, why would they care so much about what I say to you, about what the next YouTuber says to you, about what somebody says to you on TikTok or anywhere else? Why would they be constantly talking to you like you're some sort of a child who needs their hand held through every conversation you have in life, or who needs to be guided through any form of information, whether it is in text, whether it is in some form of a video content, whatever? Why do they feel like they need to hold your hand through all of that and guide you through and tell you what you can trust and what you can't trust in terms of information? Why do they feel that that is such a high priority? Because it's working, folks. Us sharing this information with one another is increasing the amount of people who are waking up out of the Maya, out of the matrix, however you want to word it, every single day. That's facts. Right? Now, I'm not trying to tell you the world is all of a sudden in some perfect place, right? Where because we're waking up more and more that we've automatically got all the solutions that we need in the world. I'm not saying that, and I wouldn't want you to root yourself in fantasy. Okay? What I'm saying to you is that it is only through the process of more of us becoming awakened that we can be in position to change the things that we want to see changed, to bring to fruition the vision of a peaceful future that we want for our families going forward. I know I have two grandchildren that I most certainly want to see grow up in a peaceful world where they don't have to worry about being drafted into some military conflict that they have no interest vested in, and that they simply do not support, that they may even be against, right? I don't want them to be fearful of some military campaign that might take their lives or the lives of someone that they care about somewhere in the world, as we're all now developing friends all over the world, right? I don't want them to grow up in a world where right in their own country, some totalitarian, dystopian nightmare of a future is being brought to fruition by the socially economic elite who would love to do that. I'm not going to sit back and be quiet about that, right? I'm going to do all I can to speak, espouse, and make aware as many people as I possibly can just what's going on so that we can do what we have an opportunity to do once we become free thinking individuals and wake up, take control of our lives and the lives of our families, and take control of what tomorrow looks like for all of us. Brother Sean, it says the only form of government that we need is governance of self. So I agree. Word of life, brethren. Right? Folks, again, the government is supposed to be your employee, not your boss. Right? Do you know that in schools, they don't even go into and talk about the roles of government in that fashion, the way I just described? They're more and more doing away with those sorts of critical thinking subject matter, with that sort of critical thinking subject matter. The more I investigate what's happening in the curriculum of our children these days, like I try to pay attention to what my like I have a 7-year-old granddaughter, right? And I try to pay attention to what she's bringing home from school. You know, what they talk about in school, the kind of things, we have some conversations whenever I'm afforded the ability to do so about what they talk to her about, what she learns and things of that nature, right? And I'm interested in learning more about her curriculum, the curriculum of all children in public schools, and even I think it's something very important is that we start to delve into what's being taught in these universities. Right? Man, there is so much that we need to be more active in knowing, in learning, and being aware of about what is going on around us and our families. Right? We need to be in the know. And if you pay attention right now, the governments in the world want you just to be in a position to follow, to blindly follow their lead. That's not what they're there for. That is not the role of government. They're not to be your leaders and your bosses. They are there to carry out the will of the people. So, yes, Brother Sean, power to the people. All people is what it's supposed to be about. Folks, if I'm not mistaken, theoretically, is that not what this whole entire country was created around? Right? Isn't that what at least some of us were taught in school, that the primary reason for the United States existing in the first place is because of the unfair practices of England heaped upon those colonists here in the U.S.? Right? Remember taxation without representation? Did anybody else study these things? Folks, government is not supposed to be your boss. They are supposed to represent the will of the people. They're supposed to bring to fruition the will of the people. It is supposed to be power to the people. Huh? All right, folks. Man, I knew this was going to be a powerful conversation yet again, just because of the forum. And I appreciate all of you so much for coming and chiming in with me each and every week and having these powerful conversations. We need to do it. We grow because of it, and we make the world that much better. So thank you all. I love you all. Let's keep it up. Let's keep it up, right? All right, family. Man, I'm going to give a few seconds for anybody else with another comment they'd like to add, a question they'd like to ask, or a statement they'd like to make. I'll give a few more seconds for that. And then otherwise, I'll be closing out this episode. All right. Cuz Alicia comes back in and says, thank you. We love you as well. Oh, man. Thank you, cuz. Warms my heart tremendously. And that's all I need to keep on going. I will not stop. And they sure ain't gonna find a way to stop me. In fact, see, you're making me do it again, man. You're making me do it again. I can't play the whole song but I gotta let that sentiment be expressed one time real quick. Real quick. While we waiting for anybody else who wants to come in with a statement, comment, or question. A few more seconds. Guess what? They won't find a way to stop me. Indigenous God incarnate, spiritual essence of the whole galaxy and beyond. Not just yet. Not just yet. Just a little bit of a sample off the new album, folks. Once again, the new album from Big King S.2, my second solo album, that is. Did had a group album back in the day, and there will be a classics version of that released as well. Look for the announcement. But making a current announcement, my second album is in the works right now. It will be 11 songs deep. Interesting that is the number I see currently up there, 7 and 4, because I am 4 songs into the album with 7 remaining. And I should be recording a new song just next week. So that's in the works. I'm also in the process of writing my 3rd book. That will be released somewhere between now and my birthday, which is October 9th. But look for that as well. Please, right now, support your brethren, right? Please support me and go ahead and get either one or both of my books currently available on Amazon. The first title, Peace, Love, Respect. This is the New Way. And the second title, Ascension Path, Best Self, Best Life, right? Both of which available on Amazon.com in paperback and ebook. The first title, Peace, Love, Respect, This is the New Way, is also available as an audio book that I have personally narrated on audible.com. And what I'm going to formally make an announcement some form or another on my YouTube channel and every other place that I can. My first book, the title Peace, Love, Respect, This is the New Way, is formally able to be found right now in your Library of Congress. All right, that's a powerful thing. So please, folks, support me in that endeavor. And anytime you see me in person, I am liable to have some inventory on me where you can buy a book off me personally. And in person, you can get yourself a signed autograph copy. I do also from time to time pop up in several places in Pittsburgh, downtown Pittsburgh, the East Liberty area, the Squirrel Hill area, from different places, different times. I'll pop up and do book signings as well. So please support me in that regard. Please make sure that you are checking out all of my music. I talked about my second album. The first album has been out for quite some time and is currently still available for listening right off of my YouTube channel, but also on just about any streaming platform, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, etc. You can find my first album, PLR New Paradigm, Peace, Love, Respect, New Paradigm. You can find that on all those streaming platforms. Please listen to all my music, folks. Please stream it over and over and over and over again and tell everybody you know. Thank you. Please help me out, folks. The UC album isn't out yet, but just so you know, because I have spoken to the other members of the UC and we all agree on the release of what we're calling the UC Classics album. Look for that to be coming. That has those old songs from the group album we released years ago, titled Old School Hip Hop for the New Millennium, right? And also some other tracks and songs that we and other members of the UC have worked on during that time period. So the UC Classics album is coming, true indeed. and I'll make sure I make that announcement. But yeah, folks, please check out all my music, my books, my content. Please support my Rumble channel. Very important, y'all, because I'm very close to becoming monetized there. Need, I think, like 25 more subscribers or something like that. That's not an insurmountable task. We can do that. We can do 25 people, right? Everybody, please go to my rumble.com channel and subscribe. I'm going to put in the chat right now what that is, and I'm following the suggestion of Sister Carrie from last week. Rumble.com. Okay. My channel is BKS Light. Big King S.2 Light. True indeed. Please go to rumble.com, folks, and subscribe. Subscribe and click all the notifications. All the notifications. That's another thing. Folks, tell everybody you know who may be a subscriber to this channel, to the Big King S.2 channel. Please tell them all to go back and make sure you've clicked all of your notifications. I have too many people telling me they're not getting notifications. And really, I blame YouTube for making it that complicated. I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense. Once you are subscribed to someone's channel, you obviously want to hear and know about their content. So it shouldn't even be, in my estimation, necessary to have a second or separate acknowledgement of that. It should just be automatic. But anyway, that's the way it is for now, folks. So please go back and click. Brother God Science, my man, salute you one time in the building. My man. Thank you, family. Salute to you always. Yeah, man, but they make it really difficult for people to get all of their alerts. And I know sometimes we scale back our alerts, and I understand that, but please, so that you're made alert not only of the podcast, but my videos and any of the content that I'm putting out here. Please make sure all of your notifications are selected. And yes, please go to the rumble.com channel and subscribe. That is in the chat right now. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Sister Carrie, Cuz Alicia. I don't know if Brother Michael's in there checking out somewhere, but either way, he's always support. I appreciate you. Brother God Science, my man. Brother Sean Johnson, my man. My great friends, Deanne, of Connecting the Dots with Deanne, and also my great friend Heather, family, Kamikaze. That, you know what? That's my brother. I didn't even realize it. Sometimes I see that Kamikaze and I'll be forgetting. That's my brother Lee. Thank you, bro, for chiming in and checking with me. Please forgive me. I've been remiss for not giving you your proper shout out. My brother. Man, all of you, I thank you tremendously. I love you all. Please be here with me again next week, promptly at 3:33. We catch that synchronicity every single week, folks. I thank you very much. I love you all. Again, you can check in the chat and you'll see the information about my rumble.com channel. There go Lisa saying what's up to you. All right. See, we family. But yeah, everybody, please go to Rumble and subscribe. I really need that boost. That's not an insurmountable task. We can get 25 more subscribers rolled over there to the rumble.com channel for Big King S.2. It is BKS Light and on rumble.com. Man, thank you all again for supporting me in all the ways you do. My books, my music. I figured you might be there, brethren. Thank you. Brother Michael Washington in the building. I salute you as well. So, man, I thank you all. I love you all. I look forward so much to building with you all again next week, sharp at 3:33 on Sunday, as we get together, laying those bricks, building this foundation to our new paradigm, one that we like to say exudes peace, love, respect. Man, once again, thank you all. I love you all. I'll see you next week at 3:33. Big King S.2 out.